Welcome to the Michael Singer podcast, presented by Sounds True, in partnership with Shanti Publications. For more information about Michael Singer's work, access to all prior episodes, and information about upcoming releases, we invite you to join us at michaelsingerpodcast.com.
Jagged of Zymestris. If you work on yourself, which basically means letting go of yourself, just at the personal level, you start to realize there's something very great inside of you. Very beautiful, very creative, very inspired, very loving, very selfless. You don't have to try and be those things. People try to make their ego be that. That's a joke. The ego cannot be that. It is not that. The ego is the opposite of that. Ego is about itself. It is always about itself. That's all it can think about is itself. It was created out of the fear of losing, of being alone, of getting hurt. And then you built this ego. You built this thing in your mind that said, this is how I protect myself. This is how I defend myself. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. The word I is like branded onto the ego. It cannot exist. It does not exist otherwise. So to try and make your ego be that way, be the loving, open, selfless, you're wasting your time. It's about letting go of the ego, not changing it into something it's not. Eventually, you just accept that, yes, I have an ego. I have an ego. It thinks about me. It wants what it wants. It doesn't want what it doesn't want. And it's serious about it. It's serious about what it wants, and it's serious about what it doesn't want. And if left to its own, that's what you guys are getting. That's what you're getting. You're getting the thing in here that's trying to get you to be the way it wants out there. And you just be honest about it. You don't try to make it not look that way or change it. You don't have to dish it out to people, but you're aware of it. That's witness consciousness. You're aware. I've spent so much time defining where ego comes from, what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a thing in the universe. It got created because we were not able to handle the realities that came in. And so you pushed some away and you kept some, and you made building blocks out of the experiences you had. But nobody said they all line up, and nobody said they're easy to live with. And how do you get what you want again, and how do you avoid what you don't want again? And so you built this mental construct called the ego, which says, this is what I am, this is what I want, this is what I believe, this is who I love, this is who I don't like, these are my friends, these are my not friends, etc., etc., etc. It's just a talking head. I see it as a program running inside of the computer mind. It's not the mind. Your mind can do all kinds of things. It can envision Mars, it can think of God, it can do all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have to think about itself, but ego does. Ego has to think about itself. That's what it's made out of. That's its roots. That's why it exists. So don't sit there and try to make it be something it's not. Okay? You'll just struggle and you won't end up with reality. So what do you do about ego? You let it go. What does that mean? You're in here. I want you to be aware there's nothing wrong with ego. It's not who you are, right? There's nothing wrong with a car. It's just not you. Okay? An ego is just a thing that is built in the mind. You built it. The consciousness built it, but you built a structure in your mind. And it's very defensive. Have you noticed it's defensive? If anybody says something against it, it defends itself. Even if you think that somebody might say something against it, it defends itself. Do you ever notice that you're having conversations in there inside your head that are not happening outside? What you're going to tell somebody, what you're not going to tell somebody, what should you tell somebody? That's ego. It's about you. What do I need to do in order to get what I want? How about if I ask you that question? How often, if I get down to the root of the whole thing, is it saying, what do I need to get and have happen so I'm okay? And what do I need to avoid happening so I'm not okay? Have you noticed it does that? Because I'm telling you, that's all it does. That's all it does. Okay? And when you change your mind, you didn't change from ego. You just decided, oh, I think this way will work better to get what I want. I'll wear these clothes, I'll drive this car, I'll get this look, I'll behave this way. How can I get what I want? And how can I avoid what I don't want? Anybody can relate? No? If you can't relate, you're in the wrong room. But the net result is you're going to see that's how it is. That's when you start to get clear witness consciousness. You notice there is this thing inside your mind that behaves that way. I, me, mine. That's what it talks about. Everything. I don't always think about myself. I think about my child. Ooh, the word mine. I think about my husband. I think about mine. I want to serve my community. This is mine. That's just the ego deciding how to be so it can be accepted, so it can be appreciated, so it can feel good about itself, et cetera, et cetera. The whole thing is ego, except the consciousness that's listening to me now and noticing the whole thing's ego. You do notice that goes on in there, yes or no? What happens if something happens you don't like? Does it get upset? Does it have something to say about it? Whether you say it outside or not, I hope you don't, okay? That just creates more confusion and disturbance outside, but it is disturbed inside. Is it disturbed inside? Have you ever found that's not doing so well in there? And then you just think, what can I do? Really what you mean is, what can everybody else do so that I feel better? And then you go about your business doing it. So that's called clarity. You have clarity, there's an ego. All right, fine, there's an ego. You will get to the point in your growth, how? By not going with the ego, not getting rid of the ego, just by not going with it. You notice that it's talking, having a conversation with somebody. You start to be strict, but not strict in a sense of discipline. You catch yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to tell you, if I had my drive, I would tell you this, give you a piece of my mind. I like that. Have you ever felt you want to give somebody a piece of your mind? What a beautiful way to say it. Your mind's in there giving trouble, I will give it to you. You look at it, that's what I would like you to do. Don't get mad at yourself. Just notice what I do with him, if he does that. I do it very quiet, simple. Hello, in there, hello, 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 stop. Are you going to say this thing to these people, to that person? And he says, no, then stop saying it to me. If you're not going to say it, I don't need you saying it inside. All you're doing is trying to release your trouble you're having with your heart in your mind. It's like you're releasing the energy that's not doing well inside of you by the mind. And don't talk to me like that. If you talk about that, I'm leaving. Are you really going to leave? No, I'm not going to leave. Then shut up. You just get a little bit disciplined with the thing, okay? You don't have to beat it up. You bring it up. You bring it up. But you be real. So that's how you work with the ego. You accept that it exists. That's acceptance. You got one, don't you? Okay? And then you start to work with it by doing what? By not letting it just run wild in there, because it can cause ulcers and anxiety and all kinds of stuff, all right? But you don't yell at it. You don't beat it up. You're not embarrassed by it. It's just what it is. Okay, when you get there and you're working with yours that way, remember what I just said? You got one. You start working with yours, with consciousness, with awareness, with the ability to lift things up. You're going to start to notice something. Everybody's got one. And that's why they're saying what they said to you. And that's why they're acting the way they did. And that's why they're closing and opening and everything that's going on that you see all the time that you don't like so much is the same as what's going on inside of you. Not the same subject. I told you, ego is built out of the experiences you've had. You've had bad experiences, experiences you didn't like, an experience you did like. You kept those two and you made a model, a me, that likes this and doesn't like that, that wants this and doesn't want that, that believes in this and doesn't believe in that. It's all because of your past experiences. I know you hear me, but I know you don't really understand when psychology says man's the sum of his learned experiences. It's not true. You're the consciousness watching that part of your mind, called the ego, your psyche, be the sum of his learned experiences. So what does that mean? It means I really like him. I've known him for a while. I think this about him. He once said something to me that was really nice and smart. So I think he's really smart, right? Okay, that's my learned experience. Is that really what he is? How do I know? I just know what I've experienced. How can you know what you haven't experienced? You don't, do you? If all of a sudden somebody comes up to me and says something about him really bad, you know, he killed his last 3 wives. Oh, what kind of a friend is that? Next time you see him, you are not going to have the same relationship as you had before because you are the sum of your learned experiences. That's that real. You know, somebody, well, of course. No, of course. So if nobody had said it, you'd still be friends with them. It's that fickle. Whatever got in there last pretty much is what's playing around with. Don't say it's logical. It's not logical. I've given you logical. This is what logical is. At any given moment, you're experiencing something, correct? How much are you not experiencing that's happening in the universe, or even in Florida or Gainesville? 700 billion moments that you're not experiencing. Therefore, the moment you're experiencing is meaningless. I know you hate me to say that. The sum of your learned experiences is nothing. It's statistically insignificant. You miss 700 billion more experiences than you had. Every moment you're having an experience, you're missing everything else that's happening. Those things are as real as the one you're experiencing. There's nothing special about what you're experiencing. It's just a moment in the universe. You're just happily experiencing that one. And it's the only one you're building your whole concepts and beliefs and hopes and dreams and values and ego based on, that little experience that you happen to be having at that moment. Look to the left, you have another one. Look to the right, you have another one. Then that becomes some of your learned experiences. Cough when somebody's saying to you that he killed somebody or that, is mean. So you didn't hear him. That's all. What'd you say? Never mind. And you're a totally different person. That's how powerful that statement, that your ego is the sum of your learned experiences, is. Wake up. It's true. That's not who you are. Is it not true that what I just described is what's going on inside your head? The sum of your learned experience, what mommy did, what daddy did, took your blanket away too soon, blah, 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 blah. So that's what is logical, is that the moment in front of you that you're experiencing is nothing. I mean, it's nothing, it's everything. It's a moment in the universe. Take a breath, okay? There is nothing special about that moment except it's the one you're experiencing. And so you say, but it's all I got. Then great, you got nothing. That's called humility. That's real humility. You understand, everybody's had a different experience. Who has had the same experience as you every moment you had an experience? Absolutely nobody. Never, ever, and never will. So this is what starts to happen. You start to notice that's what your ego is. It's the sum of your learned experiences. Therefore, it's nothing, because you missed all the other experiences, and you would have been programmed differently if you'd had any one of those. So now you start realizing that's who you're interacting with out there. From a psychological point of view, you're interacting with someone who is the sum of their learned experiences. How could you know what that is? You didn't have the experiences. How could you judge? How can you judge? Yogananda used to say, but by God's grace, there goes myself. I've heard it so many times. Now I cry when I say it, because it's the truth. If you had had those experiences, your mind would be totally different. I proved it to you. One more experience, you change your whole feeling about somebody, your whole concept of what you want. I want to go to such and such a college. Oh, I've always wanted to go there. Did you hear that the president was bigoted or something like that? I wouldn't go to that college the rest of my life. I wouldn't think about it. Some of your learned experiences. And don't you dare think it's right, because you had a slightly different experience as somebody else that talked. I'll tell you what, I never talk politics. I'm going to talk politics. If you watch Fox News versus CNN, or CNN versus Fox News, those are very different experiences. I don't care who's right. I don't care who's wrong. I don't want to talk about it. All I'm telling you is you are being programmed, both cases, I'm not taking sides, you will be a totally different person, and you'll vote different. Okay? Am I right or wrong? What do you think? You got some innate thing that knows stuff? Okay? So you start to wake up to realize you are interacting with the sum of somebody else's learned experiences. They are not your experiences. They're not going to think like you. They're not supposed to. They will not. And if they tell you that they agree with everything you think, they want something from you, because they do not agree with everything you think. Have you noticed? Ever been in a relationship, found out that person's not exactly the way you thought they were? How can they be? You made me cry. Nobody will talk to you this way. You understand that? They want to talk to you how to get someone to behave the way you want them to, how to manipulate the world to get it the way you want. That's what they teach you. Well, the Buddhists say work the root. The root is they are not you. They do not think like you. They will never think like you. No matter how hard you try, they're going to go out and have a different day than you had tomorrow. That alone. If you think you manipulated them and make them be the way you want, just wait till they see somebody else, wait till the boss fires them, wait till they get a raid, wait till they get the corner office. If they don't get the corner office, they come home different. Yes or no? Okay. So this is called waking up. So now we are sitting in a situation where we've seen ego, and we've seen it be the sum of learned experiences. And when you see it express itself as some of your learned experiences, you wanted to go to Hawaii. You've always wanted to go to Hawaii your whole life. And you turn on a TV, and there's these volcanoes going on, okay? Now, the rest of your life, you won't go to Hawaii. This is who you'll be. I used to want to go to Hawaii when I was little. Oh my God, I used to build models of it. I always wanted to go. Then I turned on the TV and I saw that. I wouldn't go to Hawaii. I'll go to Alaska first. What if you didn't watch that channel at that moment, didn't turn it on? You're a totally different person. It's embarrassing, isn't it? It should be embarrassing. How can you own that eye? It's so fickle, it's ridiculous. I told you, it is meaningless. And if I say that, then people, it doesn't happen often, but somebody writes and says, I used to feel good about myself until I heard you say I was meaningless. You should feel better about yourself because you let go of the fake part of you. You let go of the part of you that's saying, I don't feel good, but I make myself feel good. I did this, I did that. No. So let's just make believe, just for a moment, that you pass that first stage of noticing, I have an ego. And guess what? It's the sum of my learned experiences. Isn't that funny? And guess what? Nobody has ever had the experience. They can have one at the same time, but they haven't in sequence. No one's actually had the experience you've ever had. You are looking at me from a different angle. There's different light, and you have a different mindset while you're looking. Every one of you is having a different experience. Okay? Can you talk about it? You understand how different it is. Okay? So the day you can get to that point, and meditation will help, all kinds of things will help, but I'm going to assume you got there. And you're aware that what you're looking at in there is the sum of its learned experiences. And it's serious about it. It's serious about what it likes, what it doesn't like, and what it wants, what it doesn't want, what it believes, what it doesn't believe. Wake up. That's all that's going on in there is the sum of your learned experiences, which are nothing compared to the experiences you could have had and everybody else is having. Don't ever forget that. Okay? So now what? So now I know I have an ego and I know how to deal with it. It'll really calm it down. It's like handling a kid that throws tantrums. Just learn how to handle it. Learn how to deal with it. Okay? The main way you deal with it is you don't believe it. You don't listen to it. Has your mind ever been wrong? Has your ego ever told you after talking how much you're going to tell somebody something and you see them and you tell them that and you find out that you were full of it, that nothing you thought they were thinking, and you're embarrassed that you even opened your mouth? You wish, yes or no? Have you ever followed what it had to say and find out that it was the stupidest thing you ever could have done, that things weren't the way you thought they were? Of course they're not the way you thought they were. Your thought patterns are made up of your past experiences. Somebody else's behavior is totally different. So now you've woken up and you realize what I'm watching is just an ego. Seen one, seen them all. They're all different. Why is somebody prejudiced? Their father was, their grandfather was, somebody hurt them of a certain nationality. You actually form your opinions. I know what I'm talking about. I grew up on a farm. I know what farmers are like. You don't know anything. Nobody knows anything except for what you've experienced. And then you made a big deal out of it. So here you are. Now you have an ego. Mazel tov. Congratulations. Can you learn to live with it? Can you learn to not let that meaningless thing run your life? Ultimately, you don't listen to it. Ever? No, never. I would say ever, right? In general, I don't know, 90% of everything it has to say is meaningless. It's just you trying to get what you want and avoid what you don't want. Plotting, planning, thinking. Do you know that thing in there that I'm talking about spends time not liking what happened 5 years ago? Now, there's a waste of time. Why? It's not going to change, is it? There's absolutely nothing you can do about what happened 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 5 minutes ago. You can work on not having it again, but you're never going to change what already happened. And it still complains in there, doesn't it? It still feels bad about it. It's still scared of it, or it's still desirous. I can't get off the subject, I'm sorry. It is crazy to live for that thing, to devote your life for that thing. It's just nuts. And it's not so much fun, is it? It is the cause of all anxiety, all suffering, all neurosis, all depression, all everything, all disappointment. Okay? All right. So now, I'll try to go on. So now you're in there. You notice you got one. I like saying that. You got one. Okay. You got one. You have 5 fingers, 10 toes. Well, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and an ego. And a nose, too. Okay? You just got one. Learn what it's like. I told you what it's like. All right, now, I want to go to the next step. Once you literally get there and you learn to not tame, just live with the thing. You live with it. It's got issues. It's got issues. It has little fears and little desires, little anxieties and little depressions. And fine. Just you stay calm and be able to be calm and centered and clear. That's called witness consciousness, all right? While that thing is there. And guess what? It'll get quieter. Just like the tantrum kid gets quieter when you don't give it what it wants. But if you hit it because it threw a tantrum in the department store, no. If you give it what it wants because you can't handle it, no. You use child psychology, you do different things. One thing I learned a long time, I can't believe I'm telling this to you, way back in the early 70s, right? I used to deal with him like follows. I want this. Okay, you can. Yes, you can have it tomorrow. I never gave it to him. That's what you say to the kid who's throwing a tantrum. You don't hit him. Okay, we'll talk to Daddy about it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. You don't promise it. Just put it off. He calms down. You can learn to live with this thing. You just work with it. You work with it, and it will get quieter. Okay? And as it gets quieter, you're going to find out it's much nicer in there because you're not living there with a maniac, making its demands and creating anxieties and fears and jealousies and insecurities and all kinds of stuff, all right? Have you noticed? Answer me now. I don't care who you are. Have you noticed it's insecure? Have you noticed it's insecure? Yes, of course. Of course the ego is insecure. Why? Because it made itself up. It knows it's not real. And every time it meets somebody, it has to present itself and try to be accepted. And it feels insecure about it. So there, you got one. Tag, you're it. It's not wrong. It's just part of reality. So you learn to live with it, you work with it, and it will get quieter. And so now you're more centered, you're clearer. And what happens is, at some point, you start to look at everybody else that way. The way you're looking at yours. Okay, you got one. So what? You're not like me. So what? Okay? You don't even agree with what I agree with. So what? It's just basically, those are the experiences you had, and this is how you put them together, and this is what the ego's telling you to do. This is who you are. That's what you do. And sometimes people do things that you can't understand. Don't they? Of course you can't understand them. You didn't go through the life experiences that they went through that caused them to be saying what they're saying or doing what they're doing. I told you, I'm a nice Jewish yogi. I read the Bible once in my life. 1971, 72, read the New Testament, right? And now, anytime I'm growing and learning, I just hear the words. Right? Christ said, you who's without sin, throw the first stone. Let's just change it a little bit. You who's without ego, judge the other person. That's what it means, isn't it? You stop judging. You literally stop judging. I don't care what it is. You just realize that person is some of their own experiences. My ego is, I'm not, but my ego is some of my learned experiences. Of course I don't understand why. Have you ever said something? I can't believe you said that. How could you say such a thing? I would never say such a thing. Of course not. You haven't gone through the life experiences. Who's willing to listen to this? That's what it means to grow spiritually. That's what it means to grow up into reality. And you look out there and you don't judge. Judge not that you shall not be judged. That's what it means. And the third Zen patriarch says, cease the burdensome process of judging. Okay? It seems impossible, right? That's because you're caught in your ego. It's your ego that's judging everybody else. You should be like me, shouldn't I? You should be like me. Of course you should be like me. Why? Because I know I'm right. Of course you know you're right. I have evidence that I'm right. I'll give you every experience I had that proves that I'm right. That's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you had the experience, you decided that's what it's all about, and now you can prove to the experience that that's what it's all about. I told you, it's nothing. And so you start to come to a point where naturally, you're not listening to yours, you're not fighting. It's not a fight. I used to fight. It's not a fight. It's literally just being wise, working with your ego, with the understanding that it comes out of fear. Somebody asked Yogananda, what is the ego? Enlightened master. He said, the masquerading self. That is so deep. In other words, it's a mask out of thoughts. You made a thought mask and you hold it in front of yourself. in order to protect yourself and to control and so on. And that's what you present to everybody. When you take the mask down, which is not easy, it's a slow process, but naturally, you can rip it down, but it'll come right back. Have you noticed? Things can happen, you fall in love, or you get something you want, and all of a sudden he goes much nicer. He says nice things all the time. He believes in God and believes, there is goodness in the world, until something bad happens. And it's right back in 2 seconds, the same way it was before, complaining. So you get to the point where you don't beat it up. You work with it, gently you work with it, and then, believe it or not, you start naturally having the same relation with everybody else. So a drug dealer comes up to you on the streets. Hey, man, you want some, like that? And he used to revile you. He's like, how can somebody live like that? This is disgusting. Get away from me. And now it's compassion. As the Buddha said, compassion is the highest state. That is the sum of his or her learned experiences. That's where they ended up. Maybe if I had had the same experiences and mistreated when I was young, or this or that, or my parents did drugs and gave them to me, I don't know. Okay? All I know is that's who you met. You met someone that was the sum of the learned experiences. And you don't judge. You literally don't judge. There's just a sense of interesting. Okay? So that you're very quiet tonight. But I'm not saying you do judge, but then don't. You understand that? Of course, I judge, but I'm not going to be like that. Yeah, you are like that because you just admitted it. I'm talking about it stops judge. I'm telling you, the more you work with yourself, the more you understand everybody else. Because we're all coming to the same place. We're just programmed differently. But it's still the same concept as a computer being programmed. There's a mind being programmed by the past experiences. Fair enough? So the next thing is you start being able to walk out into this world without judging. Naturally. Well, if you don't judge, what happens? You honor, you respect. Doesn't mean you take the drugs. Doesn't mean you have to talk to the person. It's not telling you how to act. It's telling you how to be inside. And it's natural. You literally don't judge. It just is a natural process to understand why people are the way they are. It's not like, how could you say that? I would never say that to you. It's like, I understand. I wouldn't say, but I understand. You do your thing, I do my thing. Isn't that nicer? What if you're married to somebody? All these people need marriage counseling and all these different things going on. What if you understood that we're different? Yes, we're married. Yes, we love each other. That doesn't mean we're not different. Have you noticed? Okay? You sign whatever license you want. Something new's coming up one day. Yes or no? Okay. So you start honoring and respecting that that's reality. Now, how do you deal with the same way you deal with your own ego? When you can deal with yours, it's funny. Truth is, we're doing exactly outside what everybody else is doing. We have an ego in here wanting something to be a certain way, not wanting something to be a certain way, and we're manipulating, including our children and our parents and our husbands and wives and everything else. I'm not including, especially. That was just closest to you. Eventually you catch on, it's not going to be the way I want. That's called acceptance, called surrender. People misunderstand the surrender experiment, and it's fine. I love that they write, saying, well, I'm running a business, and I tried not doing anything like you didn't do. I don't do anything, but somehow it's not working out. That's not what surrender is. Surrender is letting go of your ego, not letting go of the outside interaction, responsibilities, decision-making, and so on. It's, where are you coming from? Are you coming from the ego, the only thing about itself, and it just wants and doesn't want, and you're making all your decisions based on that, or are you letting go of that, surrendering the hold it has on you, and then dealing with the outside world from a place of clarity, place of openness, place of respect? That's what surrender means. You're surrendering yourself. When you do that, the outside flows much better because you're not taking your garbage and dumping it on everybody else. Okay? So basically, now you're at the state where you've learned to work with yourself, and you're going to find out you don't judge other people. You just don't judge other people. We are so judgmental. It's unbelievable. You really believe people are wrong. You believe you're right and people are wrong. Now do you understand it's absurd? What a stupid thing, all right? Yeah, it's hard to talk about because we're so lost in ourselves, aren't we? We're so lost and then we project that onto everything else. All right, let's say you manage to work with yourself enough to where you realize, I got one, so does everybody else. Okay, I've learned to live with mine, I can learn to live with yours. And I don't even have to learn. It's a natural thing. Now the next thing that happens, let's just go even higher. The next thing that happens, because you're so clear inside yourself and you realize the next step is, who's looking at this ego? What is inside of me that's able to look at the ego and not do what it says? Just be clear. And you realize that's yourself. That's the self. That's the consciousness. And you start realizing not only are they not like me, the other person, not only are they the sum of their learned experiences, but they're not. They are the consciousness inside, lost in the sum of their learned experiences. I'm going to repeat that. They are the center of consciousness, lost in the sum of their learned experiences. You manage to get out a little bit. You're a witness consciousness. You're noticing that you got one of those. They're not noticing. You want to blame them? That's like blaming a kid for do what they do, right? How do you blame somebody who's not awake for not being awake? How do you blame somebody for the state of evolution? That their mind is so disturbed, their heart is so disturbed that they can't get out. And they don't try to get out. They don't know there is an out. How do you like that? Ever met somebody like that? Ha, 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 ha. They don't even know what you're talking about. Out. They don't want out. They want in. I'm going to get what remember Frank Sinatra's song? I did it my way. Congratulations. Mazel tov. I wonder how that felt for everybody else. They're just not awake. It's fine. It's understandable. People are growing. That's why you have many lifetimes. Don't worry about it. Okay? You can't make it all in one round. And so not only are you not judging because you see yours, now you've reached a state where you see you. You're very beautiful. I'm telling you, you're very beautiful. I told you in India, they have a name for you, for the soul, for the self. Satchitananda. Eternal conscious ecstasy. You start feeling that inside yourself. Constant rushes of Shakti, spirit, coming up inside of you, feeding you, raising you, feeling love all the time for no reason, feeling inspiration about everything you're doing. You can't wait to do it. It's so inspiring. It's not that one thing turns you on, everything turns you on. You've reached that state of sitting in the seat of self. It's not enlightenment. Don't even think for 1 second that that's a high state. That is not a high state. That is not a high state that I just described to you, where you're sitting back there and instead of getting all involved with what's down below you, the ego and all that stuff, you're feeling this constant flow of love, joy, power, light inside. There's way higher states than that. Oh my God, he said that. How do you like that? There's way higher states than witness consciousness. Witness consciousness is like you got the rocket ship to the launch pad, hasn't taken off yet, but at least you're on the launch pad. They're not out there scattered all over the place. So you reach that point where you're centered to that level, and now you don't look when somebody interacts with somebody, you don't see them, which is very compassionate, as the sum of their learned experiences. You understand, you have compassion, you're not judging, you see them as the same as you. They are God descended. They are that consciousness that has been lost looking down at themselves, but that's still who you are. If I take a light and I shine it on something, it doesn't matter what I shine it on, it's still the same light. Shine something dirty, something broken, something beautiful, something worth a great deal, something worthless, same light. So the light of consciousness is shining on your ego, is shining on everybody else's ego. But when you stop seeing yours as you literally stop even seeing them as the sum of learned experiences. You see God. You see who they are. You see the indwelling being that is in there. Muktananda used to say, meditate on the self. Honor and worship your own being, for God dwells within you as you. Who else said that? Oh, I think Jesus said the kingdom is within you. Somebody who's recently Sandra just talked about, they don't have any problem understanding what that means. It is literally within you. The kingdom meaning heaven, ecstasy, God, beauty, everything is what's looking at your junk. So now when you look at other people, in India, at least traditionally used to be, they used to say, don't say hello, but they say, Namaste. Ever hear that? Namaste instead of hello. What does Namaste mean? In the tradition, it means that which is God within me sees and honors the God within you. I'm looking past your body, looking past your mind, looking past the ego you're presenting to me, and I see who's in there noticing all this stuff, okay? Isn't that beautiful? So that's your next step. The next step is you literally see God everywhere. Those who see God everywhere. Now you understand that because you're seeing it within yourself. That's what you see inside everybody. Now what? Now I want to see how you interact with people. When Buddha said right action, now let's talk about right action. When you're busy wanting for yourself, they call right action. Don't be too greedy. Don't be too needy. Don't be too passion-oriented. Don't be too selfish. Just hold it back a little bit. Make sure you're doing right action. That's not right action. That's suppression of what you want to do. You get to the point, like I said, where you see that yours is not right. It's just what it is. Theirs are not right, but they don't know it yet. That's okay. And you interact with them. That's more right action. You give people space. People need space, don't they? Have you noticed? They need space. They don't need you to take their space with your stuff. Don't behave like that. Just try with kids. Kids need space. Doesn't mean you don't discipline them. Doesn't mean you don't bring them up. They need space. You have no right in the world to sit there and take that soul who's different than you and is having totally different experiences and will always have totally different experiences and build a box and say, this is where you fit and you better behave like that. Now we got mass murderers later when they grow up. We got problem things. So you give someone space. Doesn't mean you don't deal with them, but you give them space to be who they are. You give them space to be the sum of their own experiences. Till they learn that they're not. People say to me, I've gotten here and I've practiced your teaching and I'm doing so much better. I want to tell other people how to do it. How can I teach? I want to teach this. I want my wife to learn about it. And I want my kids to learn about it at a young age so they can be like that. You know, we tell them when they're like that. You grow within yourself. Let go of yourself. Go as deep as you can. That will teach everybody. Just present to any person you meet the most beautiful human being they've ever met, and you will change the world. It's not about convincing them you're right, or how do I teach them to be the teachings. You understand, all right? So now you're at the point where you're not judging, you're not trying to manipulate or control. So what's right action? You look and realize they have the right to be the way they are. It's neat. We just had selection, and everybody's very for or against. Who cares? What do you mean, who cares? Because everybody did what they thought they wanted to do, didn't they? They didn't do what you wanted them to do. Or maybe they did. I don't know. I don't care. But the net result is they acted out of the sum of their learned experiences. Now, does that mean you don't interact and be active and interact with the world based upon the state of consciousness you reach? It's like the earth is made of 8.5 billion people. They're all the sum of their learned experiences. Therefore, everybody makes the whole. So your part of it is meaningful. It's not that you say, okay, my sum of learned experiences don't mean anything, so I'm not going to do anything. No, you look at it, you don't get caught in it, you understand, okay, that's your piece on the chessboard. And you do it with respect, with honor. That's the entire Bhagavad Gita. The entire book sits there, and it's Krishna talking to Arjuna, telling what I just told you. You have your part to play. You happen to be a warrior. There happens to be a war going on. Somebody's trying to take your kingdom away, and you're supposed to defend it. But I don't want to fight. I don't want to kill anybody. It's not nice. And Krishna stopped across the face. What? I thought you were a high being. You have your role to play. You were trained as a warrior. Here is a battle unasked for. You don't even want it. That's beautiful. That's why you should do it. Because you're the purest person here. You're the purest person involved in this thing. And this is where you find yourself. And, it's so deep, I can't even talk about it. Right? And even the scene in which it takes place. It takes place with Krishna, Godhead, driving a chariot with Arjuna on the back, the warrior on the back. I'm going to be your charioteer. I'm driving you into the battle. What do you mean you won't fight? Here we are. God set this up. It's God's game, all right? But do it with respect. Do it with purity. There's another story, comes from the samurai warriors. I love it. There's a story about, in the samurai tradition, if somebody kills your master, you have to kill them. That's your Dharma. You have to follow them and kill them. So this really, really terrible person killed this very respectful, high samurai's master. And he followed the guy all over the world for a long time, trying to catch him and do his thing, what he's supposed to do. And so once they finally caught him, and the guy was bathing in a lake or something like that, and the samurai warrior walked up to him, pulled his sword out, and looked at him and said, this is what's going to go on. I finally backed you off, caught you. Well, the guy sat there, and spit in his face. He spit in the samurai's face. Okay? The warrior took a step back, put his sword back, turned around, started walking away. And the guy said, he was a very ugly guy, a very mean guy. He said, "What's wrong with you, coward? What's wrong with you?" The samurai turned around and he said, "I felt anger. Therefore, I had no right to act. It wasn't coming from my Dharma, from my responsibility that I had." You understand what Dharma means now? That which is meant for you to do, not you want to do or don't want to do. It's just your Dharma. We don't have a word in the English language because we're not high enough to touch the word Dharma, right? But that's the whole Bhagavad Gita is all about that. All the deep teachings are about that. You're here on earth. You're not here on earth to get for yourself. What are you going to get? You're going to die in 80 years or whatever. When you're 80 years old, nothing goes with you. Don't kid yourself. And so you just catch on that I'm here on this little planet, spinning in the middle of nowheres. It can't be about getting what I want because I ain't keeping it. And plus, I can't get it anyways. Which one do you always get what you want? That's pretty funny. Which one if you want what you got after you've had it for a while? Very funny. And so you wake up, you realize it's not about getting what you want. It's not about avoiding what you don't want. It's about waking up. It's about getting clear enough inside to realize I'm in here and I got this ego naturally. And how do I interact with the outside world? With respect. You literally have such respect that I'm interacting with God wearing a costume. That's what the ego is. It's just a particular costume that got put on and it's acting that way in a play. But it's God. There's the most evil person to ever live. That's God. I like very much that in the Christian tradition, they say that Lucifer is what? That the devil is a fallen angel? That's where you fell. You fell into the costume of your ego. You're being very quiet tonight. And so you wake up, everybody is a fallen angel. Everybody is a fallen angel, even your ex-husband or ex-wife. They're just behaving based upon the garbage that they're looking at, that they collected. They built their own costume. God made quite a game for himself, didn't he? He didn't have to program you. You program yourself. You just walk out there, have the interaction. You build this complicated program and you behave. The toys behave differently all the time. But it's still God. It's still the same consciousness coming down, interacting, et cetera, et cetera. And so now when you come down, and you do come down, you don't go hide off somewheres, right? You just basically, here you are, you're clear, and you interact not from your ego. You interact from the depth of your being, and you interact with love. How can you love somebody who hurt you? You learn to. You learn if you got hurt, there's only one way. I'm not talking physically. Physically, I draw a line to understand. If someone is physically hurting you, leave. No, there's no excuse. No hitting. But psychological hurting, that's a whole other ballgame. Right? Because that takes two to tango. It takes you doing something and me not liking what you did. And so you start letting go of yourself. So now there's more room for people to be some of the learned experiences. Isn't that nice? It's very nice to give people room, okay? And then basically if you need to leave, you leave, all right? But you don't do it because you can't handle it. You can handle it. But if it turns out it's not healthy and so on and so forth, and for the children, nobody's telling you what to do, except don't follow your ego, because that's the lowest part of your being. That's just something you made up based on your past experiences. You had different experiences, you would look at it differently, and so you learn to let go of yourself. But then you respect other people, and you start living your life with great respect. You get to the point where just to see another person, somebody told me, and it's true, I can't find it because I'm not very good at poetry and stuff, but Whitman, Walt Whitman, great American poet, is apparently a very high being. And there are people who wrote books about how he experienced enlightenment, that he has been in a very, very high state. And he talks about, I think in Leaves of Grass somewhere, you can look it up, that inside of every human being, there's two people. One, when you meet them, you can't stand because it's so disgusting. The other, when you meet them, you can't stand because your knees go weak and you fall down in front of them. Same person, same capability, which is a human, right? Goes from one end to the other. It depends on how caught they are within themselves. So you get to the point where you just feel respect for everything. You feel respect. You still do what you do. If somebody steals your car, you call the police. in order to hurt that person and show them shit. No, it's just the dharmic thing to do, right? You just do the best you can with what you're dealing with. And that's what the whole Gita is about. Krishna tells Arjuna, pick up your sword and fight. You're not fighting to get the kingdom. You're not fighting because you don't like the person. He says there is no greater gift to a warrior than a battle unasked for, unneeded, unwanted. In other words, it's not personal. They've let go of the ego. Here we are. So, it was an example. We fought Hitler. It was dharmic. The man was not doing very well. It was in a lot of trouble. Okay? And so on. Does that mean we should fight all the time? No. Does it mean we should never fight? No. There's no answers. It's just how clean can you be? And I can't believe it's coming to my mind. In the first Gulf War, Schwarzkopf, was it General Schwarzkopf? I got it still? He was the head, ran our armies, ran the whole multinational force, all right? After the war was over, and I'm not a military person, all right? But after the war was over, they did a tour of his bunker. And I'll never forget it. That was a long time ago. He had some books on his very simple bed, simple little place. He had 2 or 3 books on his nightstand. And one of them was the Bible. One of them was like The Art of War, Lao Tzu, right? Whatever it is. And the other was The Prophet by Gibran. Isn't that beautiful? I gained a lot of respect for the military. I grew up in the 60s during the Vietnam War, right? And I just gained respect for some of these people are real. They're deep. It's not a matter of war hawks or that kind of thing. The people that are into doing their responsibility and taking it seriously and so on. So that's the stages you go through as you let go of your ego. It doesn't stop with you letting go of your ego and you're feeling joy. It comes out as how you're interacting with other people and how you see other people. And what you see is God. Literally, that's all you see is God. There's a beautiful story. Ramakrishna, I love Yogananda Guru. Ramakrishna, my hero. He was just God-man from the age of 6. He was God-man. He heard the name of God. Every hair on his body was standing on end. If he saw something beautiful, like white birds, egrets flying across the monsoon black sky, it hit him so hard he passed out. They thought it was epileptic. They used to take him home. He fell into samadhi at the age of 6. Okay, and his whole life is what a story, right? So his disciples, of course, were very deep, and he had one particular disciple, and that was Brother Brahmananda. I'm not sure it is, but this is back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and basically, after Ramakrishna left the body. Some of the disciples, the students would come to this guy's house and to get satsang, to have him talk with them and so on. Their door to his house, the little room where he used to sit, was there. And he'd come out and he'd talk to them, a handful, not a whole lot, a handful of students. And one time they didn't come out. He didn't come out. And all the students were waiting there. They had trouble talking about this stuff without crying. I love deep stuff, okay? Students were waiting there. They knocked on the door. He didn't answer. Another student came and was close to him, opened the door, and walked in. There he was sitting there meditating. He's older, old man, meditating. And they said, Brother Brahmananda, the disciples are waiting for you. He said, no, I can't go out. They said, why? I've reached the point that it seems really stupid to go out there and tell God how to behave. Isn't that beautiful? So these are the stages you reach when you let go of yourself. Yes, you meditate. Yes, you do mantra. Yes, you go read. Do whatever you want. But please do this. When it's all said and done, what did Christ say? You must die to be reborn. It means you must die of the personal to be reborn in the spiritual. It's not all or nothing. You don't need drugs. The more you let go and come to peace with yourself, with your ego, not go with it, not beat it up, not try to rip it off. The Gita says, one should raise the self with self, not trample down the self. For self, which is self's friend, can become self's foe. And that's taking off on the capital S, meaning the higher self, and the ego self is the lower self. One should raise the self with self, not trample down the self. Learn to work with yourself to raise it up. And as you do, you'll start realizing that Shakti is flowing inside of you. You start being fed from inside. And I'm telling you, then you look out in this world and you won't judge people, even people that aren't so nice. You just understand. You just understand so much. How can you judge a person? Look, they went through this childhood, this happened, blah, 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 blah. And so now they have different opinions about things. Of course they do. Of course they feel differently about things you feel strongly about. Of course they do. They had different experiences. Can you understand that? That doesn't mean you don't work. Just like Arjuna or the samurai warrior, you have a responsibility. You're the person who sees it the way you see it because those are the experiences you had. So yes, be an activist. Yes, come forward. But don't judge. Don't sit there and say they're crazy and hate them and turn fear and anxiety and think everything's crazy just because it is. Of course it's crazy. How can you take 8.5 billion of you and you're all totally different because you all had totally different experiences and dump you onto a planet together? What do you think is going to go on? Okay? So can you live here? Can you do your thing, but not personal? Right? I'm representing this side. I think it's neat in debate club. I never did it, but I've heard they make you debate both sides. A fine debate club. This time you take this side, you take that side next time. That's so healthy, isn't it? Could you do that? I like it, especially after it's so close to the election, to look you in the eyes and say, can you do that? All right? The answer is, of course not. But that's what it means to evolve. But it doesn't mean you don't do your thing. That's your responsibility. You're representing this side. You do your thing, but not with hate and not with fear and not with judgment, with participation in the process of life, right? So you work on these things. Jagrata.
You've been listening to the Michael Singer Podcast, produced by Sounds True in partnership with Shanti Publications. For more information on Michael's body of work and all back episodes, please join us at michaelsingerpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening. Sounds True, waking up the world.